Okay, are we ready to start? Okay. So I will call the executive committee of the Go Virginia Board to order here for our inaugural meeting. We have not done an executive committee yet, and so
The last one I could find record of was in 2017.
okay.
Yeah.
So since our committee structure, we have not.
Yes.
Actually had one of these, so I hope that this will be useful to us, but let's go ahead and do the roll call to make sure we have our ducks in a row. So who's going to, Sarah? Yes, doing that, okay?
Jim Chang. Buzz Lee.
I'm here.
John King.
Unfortunately for you once.
And Emily Oakland. Here. Thank you.
Great.
Got it.
Okay, and I assume we do not have public comment, but let's confirm that.
No, we haven't received any written public comments, and I don't believe there are any members of the public here to provide public comment.
Okay. And we will close the public comment
That's
section.
mandatory
It is.
on the executive session.
Executive committee, we're getting some clarity on that. We are currently in open session, but Carol Quinn did ask about conditions under which this group could meet in an executive session, which would be separate from and outside of, wouldn't be a part of the public meeting portion of the meeting.
I'm
So
sure there
we'll bring back some
provision
information.
for when and why, so we will get those details and I'll share them. So everybody is on the same page. So first item on our agenda is just really to set a tone on the executive committee, its role. I think we are, coming up on 10 years of Go Virginia, and so, looking ahead, where do we want to go? How do we want to steer the ship? And, having this group an opportunity, whether it's quarterly, I think we should schedule these quarterly, just so that we've got them on the books, and if there is, meaningful, topics for discussion, that we will cover those, but so that this group can come together and kind of give some thoughts about bigger picture items and directional awareness of where we want to take the board. So that's my intention in trying to pull us together on a routine basis. So there's just an opportunity for us to talk a little bit more holistically about vision and how we as leadership can help put that in motion. I think, filling out committees is one of those things that we want to talk about doing, but that's my idea as far as the executive committee is concerned. So any thoughts or differing opinions on how we should use this group?
I think partially more for you than the sound board, but I think you're right on.
Okay.
Like. Yeah, I'm good. The chair can be a little. Yeah. The CEO could be a little bit. Yeah. And as we talk about over there, you often want to know where you want to have a plan before it takes off. And using your, how we are influential, but using us to help plan the plan in the way it needs to be intended. Otherwise, you may feel you have to do that alone. There's a lot of conversation. It seems like there's more conversation than all of them. Or maybe some of this. This is some of that.
I think that, and we'll, talk about this, we talked about retreat, but I think that we were just discussing it would be a great opportunity at retreat to talk about where we want Go Virginia to go, and are we fulfilling the mission as we see it? How can we move more closely towards that if we don't feel like we are? But yeah, I agree the discussion is good, and I like to see that bubbling up after meetings, before meetings. So maybe if there's a way for us to provide a venue for that at the retreat, that would be helpful.
I don't get any more questions. But like from other board members, some of the regional council, I understand a lot of there. And the one thing that I keep stressing with all of them is that I know it's going to change. I mean, don't assume that this is taking place, or, and including, don't assume that the state boards are right. You know, I think, at the end of the day, you know, with Region 7, I'm very frustrated, and certainly want to help and keep those things. But one of the things I think maybe would really help is reach out and call, you know, and talk. I know the staff wants to spend money, you know, and sometimes you sit here and you see through those questions and you're like, okay, well, the state board doing it, that's a work and less approval or something like that. But at the end of the day, I just think that communication, we're trying to figure out how we can make that. I think it's a great board discussion, but it's two-way street. You know, we did both ways. And I remember a board member was going to be willing to reach out and talk, and we talked about attending meetings and that kind of stuff. But I think also, you know, we want the councilors to, if someone's not going right, if they don't feel right, don't get in the room with like-minded people and go down a rabbit hole.
One thing, if I may, you know, that might be helpful, of course, with decrease Sarah, but, you know, even the program, we're just touching the stone again on the program's mission statement. This is a board, and not to say there needs to be, but does not have a strategic plan per se. It has enabling legislation. We require the regional councils, but I don't even know that a work plan based on kind of, you know, the combined activities of the committees, you know, even in just a very summary work plan might be helpful. To your point, if you begin with what we want to be able to say next year at this time, and kind of work backwards from that, that might also be something for this committee. And the executive committee has a purpose, which is defined in the bylaws. And it is to really guide kind of the strategic activities of the program, the initiative. So I think that would be interesting as well.
This, I don't know where this fits in the agenda.
We can use that stuff. We don't have to be super rigid when we get that.
When I think about just my own personal perception, you know, and we're seeing, I call the conclusion of what I'll call the first chapter. There are people who helped establish it, wrote the enabling legislation, were involved in the enabling, lobbied for it, et cetera, et cetera. There's very few of them. So we're seeing a new generation of people. The second thing is because GOVA Virginia has been in business for 10 years, that's actually enough data. And I'm not thinking about project by project, I'm thinking at a higher level. What is the impact of 10 years of GOVA Virginia on the Commonwealth of Virginia? And what does that say? And then thinking about a framework that we in legislation, how we translated that in terms of our policies and procedures and implemented it, and then what are the lessons we learned for a chapter in terms of those big wins. I think that actually is the discussion about it. We're proposing to start at that strategic plan, because then you can say, okay, what does that mean for how we think about using this entity to then drive the next chapter of economic growth? Because when it was first established, we're going to do it and use strategic right now. With the organization I run, AI didn't exist, and technology didn't exist. So all these things were new. And so I think it's helpful for us to sit down and say, okay, based on what we've done, what have been the most successful projects? What is that in the next chapter? Particularly in my opinion. So for example, I mean, the two big ones, and there may be others, we should debate this, but you know, you and I, we all heard us talk about this, you know, what we've done in, I'll call it finance function, in terms of the seed capital has been transformational. And, you know, everybody else is taking credit for it, but GOVA Virginia was there at the beginning. And that's exactly what this organization is supposed to do, right? Seed capital. Okay. And I call it seed capital because this is money that will not be cleared by the private sector. So Reggie can debate all the time. The reason people are coming to GOVA Virginia is there's no private dollars. If there was an economic, clear economic turn, you wouldn't need GOVA Virginia.
Right.
Okay. Well, some of those organizations,
This is, I know, that's right.
they get home.
And then the second one is OTAN, which is actually such a big success. It's fun. But there are probably others.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other lane, so that is kind of how I think about the strategic plan, because that actually regrounds everybody. Okay, here's the enabling legislation, this is how we set ourselves up, what we did. What have we learned through our first 10 years? What is the economic environment like? What does that mean for anyone just think about crafting our work business? The second piece related to that, though, is do you think a little marketing and messaging would be helpful for us? In other words, what is the one sheet of paper that everybody on board knows are the big wins? So that everybody who's in the General Assembly knows that the big wins that you've got, because, it gets lost.
Right.
I'm in there, I'm in the General Assembly regularly, most of the time for higher ed. Use requirements, to help facilitate this. But all you know, one sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So everybody going in there, like, everybody goes, got it.
Digestible.
What?
Digestible.
It's
Easily
digestible. I'm not saying we're lobbying, but we have to be sharp with our messaging about what is the value of this.
Right.
Yeah.
You're saying so many good things. She wants to actually.
That's
That's it.
But to a certain degree, we are.
No, well, we are, but why does money keep getting brought back? I think the department's saying, I'm not sure what that money,
Advocacy.
we gotta advocate.
I think.
So technically, I'm not allowed to lobby, so I never use for certain profit. I advocate. But make no mistake, all of us as board members need to be very clear about this organization is advocates. And there's a reason that all the money people are on it, so they need. I'm not sure they are. Maybe they are. Yeah,
I think putting it together as
In that
far
way.
as wins.
Right.
Would be a great way for us to have that message.
and so I may have gone too far, and got too excited. But I think being clear about the values is,
I agree.
is,
I agree. So if we were to think about an agenda item for the retreat being a strategic plan, look back at the 10 years and highlighting some big wins where we feel like that Go Virginia's been transformational. Probably want to be careful about highlighting the flip side of that as far as things that weren't as successful. We might want to,
Right.
I'm
we
sure
can
that,
learn, we can say, we didn't.
or we could characterize,
So
there were some things that had these characteristics that were not as
Didn't work.
helpful and didn't work. But I do think putting a spotlight on the things that we feel like have been our kind of calling card, that we want to continue to be a blueprint for the next 10 years, if that's the way we're thinking about it. Is it possible, and I'm looking to staff to see, because I don't want to overload you guys with, a huge ask. But by September, do you think we could get something that is kind of a look at the last 10 and, we've got a dashboard. We've definitely have some good ways to slice data. I think that is at least an approachable way for us to go through and highlight where we've been.
Yes.
That can then be a table setting conversation entree into a conversation about where we go forward. And
They may be, sorry, like, these are the lessons that either, I'm not making some, okay, I don't think. But for example, in the bio, like the lesson there may be, we have to look at data drivers, don't take the conclusion there. Looking at all aspects of the ecosystem.
Mhm.
So in other words, it's not just one portion, it's not outside, it's all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we have to think that, but we want to focus on the industry cluster. How do we fund all the, and then what are the elements of that ecosystem that we have to make sure? For GoTech, it may be, okay, this is a repeatable and sustainable training model that can be applied multiple places. I'm making this.
Scale.
It's-
Right.
right? As opposed to, don't we go to work in Carolina?
Yes.
I love Carolina, but you know, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's a narrower.
And I like that perspective. I think early in the program's development, folks were, even at the regional council level, very focused on the investment strategies. So they would, but we've got enough projects completed that we can start to kind of put together the mosaic.
Right.
To your point. And, Region 9, I think, has definitely gotten there because they've got enough projects to go, oh, these were all in the name of biopharma, for example. And we've got some other regions that are doing that as well. But we do have the data. And I do think we could start to look at the mosaic. All right, let's think about all of our investments in life sciences and biotech, right? And if that is the best practice we want to bring forth, what made it so? And then we can refine the program, for example, to really put emphasis on those activities, right? That evidence supports in the example of biopharma work for regions. Because I do think that's, you know, this kind of cluster. I was explaining to Emily that, you know, when we think about organizations like BDP, for example, that are kind of marketing and sales, where Virginia in some ways can be product development, new product development. And so, yes, we do have the data. So,
We help give them.
yes. So I think we could definitely put together, you know, do a little bit of a retrospective, like let's talk about investments from them to now, from that moment in time to today. We could, I believe, shine some light on what works, meaning best practices. Failure isn't a failure unless you don't learn from it. So there's been plenty of moments, I think, where the Go Virginia State Board has elected to choose a different path, amend program guidelines, for example, to say, this isn't an investable strategy. And then the fact sheet or the impact statement, I think we could get that together, no problem. I like it.
Thumbs up.
That's your first name, please?
So, we definitely have, we've got the reported result, and I think it's just really wrapping the story narrative around it. And, I do think it's fair for folks in the legislature, or even everyday Virginians to ask, what are we getting for Go Virginia's investments? And we want to be good stewards of these resources. Personally, and the team knows this, radical transparency. That's one of the reasons we built the public facing dashboard so quickly. We have nothing to hide. And I think a great story to tell as well.
And
So,
I think that's really important to push down to the regional council level because, you know, that somebody was saying about that our colleagues in Smith, Virginia. Like, well, you gotta look at the,
wow.
I know that's pretty strong statement. You gotta look at the reality is it's still taxpayer dollars.
Mhm.
And I mean, you got elected officials going on, you got elected officials going on, you got all these different things, and you're trying to make everybody happy, and then you get big board members that don't really fully understand it. It's just so many moving parts
Yeah.
that it has to evolve. But I think trying to educate down to that level and say, wait, people are going to hold us accountable. And it's also ethical.
Yeah.
To treat this money like your money. You know, and I like what you're saying is, and trying to go back and put that into a synopsis that says, these, because it goes back to what we said even about what things that do the application. These are the things that we know about. These are, you know, these are the pieces, but this would be the same thing. Why is this a good part of, because we've proven that funding these projects pays exponentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many billions are being invested in biopharma?
Oh gosh, between the Eli Lilly, AstraZeneca, I don't have that number in front of me, but we can grab it. It is,
How many billions are being invested? By-
So, Eli Lilly was, 5, I believe, Merck was 3 billion, there was, AstraZeneca was 4, so that's 12 billion.
All right, so
Right there.
let's just call it Wow, that's a big enough.
Yes.
Okay. So over the first 10 years, you, let's just say, go and you just invested $250 million. Okay. If you invest $250 million
Yeah.
and you get 12,
Go in.
that's what you would have,
All the other
in the
projects.
private sector, you have all the other projects worked out,
Yeah.
which say we're not,
Right.
okay? That's it. So that you take.
I hear where you're
the
going.
failures are, you know, you have to, I think of this almost in a sort of private equity. If you can get like 3 or 4 winners at 10,
Yeah.
that's good.
We can even characterize
That's good.
the learnings as pivot points.
Right.
Or opportunities where we took what we learned from something that didn't develop or was adequate.
Yeah.
And then, adjusted course. Maybe that's the way. Yeah. For failures, these areas.
So,
Yeah.
so not including these projects that we approved today, we have 369 projects for $154 million.
There you go.
So it's even.
But that doesn't include everything we approved today.
That's even better. Thank you.
So, we've got the data. I think we can provide a little bit of a retrospective, some analysis, absolutely fact sheet, impact sheet and statement. I do think that at the retreat would be a good time to just kind of touch the stone with the programs. I'm not a big believer in mission statements, but I think we gotta remember kind of, why we're here.
I think we do, in this, there's so many new people.
Yeah.
Back to the
Yeah.
foundation.
Would be helpful, but we're not there now. You gotta remember that moment in time. I know there were a lot of conversations about the sequester and coming off the heels of, that recession where Virginia's recovery was a bit sluggish and uneven and, concern about overdependence on federal spending. We're at a interesting moment here. But a lot of other things happening now. We've got AI, we've got energy kind of on the forefront. There are a lot of other, I think, economic changes of a global proportion. And so how do we improve with these resources, Virginia's competitiveness?
Such a chance. And, I interviewed with the senator today, we're talking about the future of the economy. Really interesting.
Yeah.
There's clearly going to be focus on defense.
Mhm.
Okay, shipbuilding. Clear focus on these are areas that basically we can. Energy. So and Tim Kaine said this, and they both talked about it. They said, first of all, when Tim Kaine was governor, he said we were listed very bottom in terms of solar, we're top 10 in solar. That we're building one of the largest wind farms. So he said 35% nuclear, which is one of the things.
Yeah.
And so we're actually one of the most advanced, and we're building what Lynchburg has in terms of nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And then Charlottesville, Richmond, Houston.
Yeah.
So we're actually.
Great story.
We have an incredible story about it. We can launch ourselves in the next state of energy. And I grew up about that previously. But both of them talk about it. So that is Virginia has in terms of energy.
Yeah. And we do have a number of regions that have identified energy.
And our data center, you can drive it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and if you think about even, my personal, our data centers will focus on that. I mean, that's just the logistics. It's a warehouse for data. It is not the industry cluster. It's one part of it. There's, upstream opportunities. What do you do with the data? How do you turn it into information that's actionable? Downstream, you've got a whole supply chain, right, that's supporting the cooling systems, design and engineering of the buildings, all of the infrastructure needed to support it, and energy, right, is an important input. So I love that discussion, and I think we could definitely continue it. And a reminder, AI and energy came up as kind of top 2 issues out of last year's retreat. And the AI study was kind of one actionable next step. I don't think we've gone as deep in the energy discussion yet, but I definitely like where we're thinking.
Those could be opportunities for, I don't know, breakout discussion.
Yeah.
or maybe some expert analysis and
Yep.
sharing findings at the retreat. We wanted to spark some additional wheels turning.
Yes.
And that's the, interesting, you have to be careful. With them talking to
Theoretically.
them. Dominion,
A
obviously.
little more infrastructure than energy.
Yeah, but you understand.
Yeah,
you know,
of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Technically, energy sector.
right. But, Dominion is obviously, right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, be careful in terms of things they were actually.
Yeah. And we are working with one region on a developing application that I think is very exciting and interesting. I won't share too much.
In full disclosure.
Yeah.
I did it with Carlos Brown,
No, clearly, I mean, energy, again, it popped up. There's lots of reasons why it's kind of critical right now. We have a lot of regions that are pursuing strategies, for example, site development strategies with a focus on energy dependent industries, because they know those sites need to be kind of proximate to transmission, generation, depending on the utility, that they need and level of usage. So I think we're seeing that. I do think that, this board could really put, a flag and say, we want these resources to help us dominate in these areas. That'd be exciting.
Well,
So defense, AI, energy.
those are the three.
Okay.
We talked about.
Well, it could be state law thing. So, yeah, this region, that region, but when you look at the band and things like that, that could be done in the next year. That's a lot. Obviously, someone knows, but it doesn't lie.
Yeah, I mean, Warren kept saying, everybody needs electrons, we don't. You have to
Yeah.
figure out how to produce one.
Yes.
And we have one of the most diversified. Energy portfolio in the country.
There's some
Like any
exciting
other
stuff
state.
on.
Yeah, and he said that we're really on the cutting edge.
I even think about what our research institutions are, what are their unique capabilities, and so, how could you bring that into learning?
Okay, so another item on retreat, I have heard in, feedback from regional council folks that they appreciate the opportunity to do some interfacing with state board in a more casual, not in a like formal meeting environment, but in a little more opportunity for conversation. Do you have thoughts, John, on how we might want to cultivate that or, provide those opportunities, or is it just putting everybody together? Is that enough?
Well, I don't think it's enough, because Pride Day Road Show, urging people to even just visit the council in the backyard. And I don't think that's happening.
Maybe there's a way we can structure that so that there's good opportunity.
Rather, that's one of the Region 7, talking about people at the forward. But we need to get to that person. Person.
Well, and the self-assessment also spoke to that as an opportunity for improvement. So maybe that's a way that we can weave that into the retreat planning. And maybe even an unofficial, poll of some of the regional council folks to say, what, if you were helping us design what this might look like, what would you have as a suggestion for how to engage and make it easy?
The structure, we have breakout sessions. We could assign the groups, there's no actions, so don't let people free to choose.
Mhm.
I think that was one of your biggest positive feedbacks, right, out of the last retreat.
If we want to do this kind of thinking, I think a lot of breakouts, because people are most productive.
Yes, ma'am. There's something I want to mention.
It's just free discussion.
Oh, it's. But I appreciate the, yeah. The first thing I want to remind you all is that we did do a board self-assessment. So we do have some data points on ways we can engage board members, maybe improve our onboarding process. But the biggest takeaway is that the board members want to do more. So I think having some sort of structured program in place to get them into the regions will kind of bridge that gap. The second thing, and John knows this, we've completed the regional council self-assessment. I don't know if we should have the opportunity to share it with you, Emily, but, again, the biggest thing is the disconnect between the regional council and the board. And some respondents actually noted the state board retreat saying, we love that and we want more of that. So I think any opportunity that they can get face time with you is way valuable. We don't have to decide today, but I do think that's an important element of our planning, that we should try to intentionally create those opportunities for engagement. Because I know it's just natural, you know, you have a sidebar conversation and talk amongst the board members and that's it. But if there's ways that we can really kind of create those opportunities that were favorably viewed before, then we should do more of that.
The answer to your question is, I
Okay.
personally only. I thought about it, and I thought about, remember we did, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, there was a holiday after the board meeting at the governor's mansion.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of the best attended board meetings that I go to.
Well, holiday reception at the governor's mansion. People usually-
That's it.
So that's even at the regional councils that stuff
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, now, let's say, create governor outings, but that type of thing sort of created the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then that's, you know, not at that meeting and that follow, you know, definitely.
We could certainly, I mean, we could put in a request that there be some, you know, a reception or something on September 15th and see if the governor will be willing to open her doors and host our group. So that's a possibility. I think you guys are right on. It's a combination of structure. I think, to create opportunities for the state board members to kind of workshop with the council members has a lot of value. Then they become kind of co-creators. It creates opportunity, you know, for more engagement and then I just think making sure that there's kind of less structured social interactions that can occur so people can get to know one another. So much of this work is really about trust and make sure we're creating some environments for those relationships can form as well. So
And maybe just telling state board members, look, one of the goals of this retreat is for us to have interaction between state board members and regional council. So that is, it's an intentional thing.
yes, yes, because that is really where, I mean, I know this team does a lot of work when we receive the applications, of course, providing technical assistance, hopefully to make those applications more competitive, but there's a lot of work going on in the region. And I do think there needs to be, you know, solidarity and kind of purpose between the regional council leadership and the state board. Not understand. Well,
I think
growing, so.
I think we covered retreat pretty well.
Yeah.
I think there's some good takeaways. And I also want to be mindful of our time. Yes, we didn't plan to have this be quite as long as it was, but a great discussion. Do we want to hit the work plan priorities for the committees or table that and just?
I would recommend tabling it. I just included, you know, the committee charters as, you know, like one is missing. Just as points of reference, you know, there may be some, I would just encourage each of the committees to take a look at their charter and just see, okay, this is gonna be our most important activity, right? And maybe based on this conversation, you know, you can kind of review that charter and go, oh, yes, I can see how this responsibility fits into this broader strategic goal. Yeah.
Okay. We did not discuss program investment strategies.
I think we had discussed that, Emily, to be a topic, and I think that's gonna come out of this retrospective, what we're,
I think it is too.
because I do think we can do this by industry sector, but we can also look at, funded projects by investment strategy and we'll do some additional research, as well. Are these the right core funding priorities? And, you know, if these are kind of the industry opportunities, what do those four things mean? Do the four investment strategies that are present today support the needs of these emerging industries?
Okay. Other things you wanted to cover in this meeting?
Well, I have to, there's two meetings up there.
Um,
I can figure that out.
Okay.
Well, the good thing about you meeting today in person is you can hold a virtual meeting, yes, the next time around. Right. Okay. So, our idea here, and we tested it today, is that we do in-person meetings with committees on the board meeting days because people are here. I want you to go home and see how you feel because this is a long day. Thinking about Go Virginia, and we may want to break things up in a little bit of a different way, but this was the experiment today. So, I think as long as the executive committee meets, virtually before the next board meeting, ideally a couple weeks before, just so, you know, we can help prepare any information you may want to include in the June 9th board packet, which should be pretty good too.
Well, Sarah, if you want to do a poll,
Yeah,
members, see, back out however many weeks you want from the board meeting date, and then just poll us, see what works, and we can think for a virtual meeting.
that's good. Okay, I know exactly the week I'm gonna shoot for, which will be feedback week. That is kind of it's a little bit of a lull for us. We get through work group review, we send any questions to the region, and then they have a week to respond, which is usually when we, catch our breath.
We need recording rate. Yes, yeah.
All right, well, having come to the end of the agenda, I think we can go ahead and adjourn the executive committee meeting. Thank you for participating in this. I think it's a really good discussion and hopefully some good movement towards a productive retreat.
Good.
So we're looking forward to it.
Where are we gonna do it?
We've got a tentative at, Bright Point Community College. We were at Reynolds last time, and I thought that worked as a venue, just the room configuration and the space. So we'll confirm that. We did switch dates because we realized the 9th was the day after Labor Day, and that's probably not going to be reasonable. So we'll reconfirm venue. But it seemed like everybody had a pretty good reaction to the location we had last year, conference space, AV was good. We had limited kind of isolated breakout space, but the room was big enough. I felt like we kind of divided to smaller groups around the room.
Right, which one else?
Yes,
Let's do it.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's in Chester.
Oh, Chester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our, one of our many options.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks all.